Hey, what's going on, guys? James Gidley. We're back here again with the Week 10 overview on our weekly materials, CGL 145. So first off, what I wanted to break down is the main article, the main reading we had, which was Dog Whistle Politics by Ian Haney Lopez. And guys, basically what this article breaks down, which goes over dog whistle politics, is basically kind of the secret code, secret language used by politicians that has evolved over time to allow them to basically kind of infer racial connotations to their supporters, to the public, without having directly come out and say, black people or Arabic people or stuff like that. It was pretty interesting. The video in which we saw, we watched about dog whistle politics is the one man was quoted over time. You start from the 50s, politicians, they're saying the N-word openly, everyone knows what's going on. They didn't call it out directly. But over time, they started to get backlash from that. The public, you can't openly be racist. So that's when they started using terms focusing on things such as food stamps, welfare, crime, and stuff like that, like being tough on crime. We see that a lot with Trump's campaign, which they actually demonstrated in a video that was for this week, where he says, the suburbs are going to be destroyed. And, it's very easy for people to look at this and say, well, he's talking about the suburbs, he's talking about jobs, the classes. But, the more you look into this, especially after reading the article about, dog whistling, it's very easy to see how he's intending his supporters to kind of interpret that. It's basically all kind of leaning towards, the non-white people are what is going to ruin the U.S. or ruin our countries. We saw that with illegal aliens, Trump's stance on immigration being super hard with that. We see it when he talks about crime and when he talks about, protecting the police. You saw even the debate when he refused to condemn white supremacy. And I'm sure, as many of you can tell, from a lot of ways, when Republican politicians, some Democrat politicians too, when they talk about crime and they talk about the inner cities, they talk about Chicago, it's very clear to see that they are intending to kind of strike fear into the white public and kind of create that division without having to openly, talk about race. Something that was really interesting, that is super true, that I read in this article by Lopez, is the way that most, Republican politicians these days actually try to put the blame of who is racist on people who are willing to talk about race openly. They say, why does it always have to be about race? Why does it always have to be about race? So then they can kind of paint the picture of people who speak out against injustices against Black Americans as being racist towards white people, or trying to put race in every situation, when the reality is race is already in every situation. Now, the video, one of the videos, again, I want to discuss more specifically was, the myth of the food stamp queen that Ronald Reagan talked about. Now, I'm sure people all, there's always the, racist things people say, connotations about, how Black people, take welfare more than other races that use food stamps, which is simply just not the case. White people are the biggest group currently on welfare and food stamps. And you see especially, presidents like Reagan, who are big on jobs, everyone working, all these people are taking your money that you earn. He kind of perpetuates this myth that there are these people that are just abusing the government system, Black people specifically, and are just basically taking your hard-earned money and then using it for themselves, when in reality, as I discussed previously, white people are the biggest receivers of welfare and food stamps in the U.S. So my two questions that I have for the class this week, first one pertains to this article about dog whistle politics. After viewing these materials, how have you went back and kind of reflected on, let's say, Donald Trump or any other politician? How have you reflected on some of the things they say when referring to crime, referring to welfare, food stamps, illegal immigration? And how have you been able to better decode what they're saying to find those, hidden racial implications? And then for my second question for the class, that had to pertain right. That had to pertain to, the video of Trump talking about the suburbs. Sorry. The second question for that for you guys is, not everyone lives in the suburb. We all cover different areas, but how would you describe, or how do you feel that Trump's describing of the suburbs and the end of the suburbs, how do you think that he intended his mainly white support base? How do you think he intended them to interpret that? And how do you kind of see how there could be racial implications with that? So that's all I got for you guys. Definitely went over time, but we got everything.